Natural calamities are actions of the Mother Nature and are not subject to the willpower of a human being. They can cause a tremendous damage for the national economy of any country and can be fraught with severe consequences. Among frequent and most dangerous calamities are earthquakes, floods, and mudflows. Natural disasters happen unexpectedly and can be of an extraordinary nature. They can destroy buildings, facilities, can destruct values, can disturb manufacturing processes, and can cause the death of human beings and animals. Any events can act like catalysts for the creation and expansion of natural calamities and disasters. By the nature of origin, there can be two types of calamities: man-caused earthquakes, which are caused by the human activities, and more frequent are natural quakes that might happen as a result of tectonic processes deep in the core of the earth during volcanic eruptions, violent collapses, landslides, karst futilities, meteorite downfalls, and collisions of the earth with celestial bodies. Very often the floods happen during the ice movements when pieces of ice get stuck, or during lavish rains, or breakdowns of dams, reinforcement dikes, and blockages of rivers during the earthquakes. Mudflows are caused as a rule by lavish rains, thawed snow, combination of rains with snow melting, glaciers thawing, wind blowing of water, ice jams in rivers, dam breakages, breaks of lakes created as a result of blockages. The reasons that cause these natural disasters are peculiar for the entire world. Any part of the world is subject to any of these calamities to an extent. The Republic of Kazakhstan is not an exclusion in this case. The cases of natural calamities can be different due to their nature, scale, and consequences. It would be enough to recall the earthquakes that happened in a row in the town of Verny at the start of the 20th century. There were frequent mudflows that hit the city of Almaty, spring floods in western and southern Kazakhstan. Despite the fact of utilization of advanced methods for prediction of natural calamities, they still remained a frequent event for the Republic of Kazakhstan even these days. For example, an earthquake that hit Lugovoye region of the Jambul Oblast, or a flood that occurred on Sirdarya River or the Ural River, or the floods that happened at the pre-Caspian region. The start of the 21st century was marked by the tremors in Turkey and Pakistan and floods in America, Europe, and Asia. Natural calamities accompany the humankind throughout its entire history, and during each of them, they caused an enormous damage. The damage caused by any natural calamity can be of direct or indirect nature. Direct damage implies death and injuries of people, various types of destructions. The determination of the direct damage is not that complicated versus the estimation of the consequences of an indirect damage. Economic damage can disturb the normal work of power, transportation, communication, and other spheres of the national economy, and can cause an allocation of additional funds for the restoration activities. Ecological damage can cause the environment pollution, especially when the industrial enterprises where hazardous for the human being's substances are being manufactured, and if these enterprises get destroyed. In these cases, the consequences can be irreversible. Social damage can imply a loss of trust of people in their management, which is supposed to protect the people from any calamities, and also it implies an intensification of all social controversies. The magnitude and the differentiation of different types of damages and natural calamities can depend upon a number of factors, which are density of population, level of preparedness of the population for disasters, and types and technologies which are being used at the facilities of the national economy. Here is the statistic data regarding the damages caused in the years 2000-2001. Russia, southern Sakhalin. Houses, roads, and railroads were destroyed, and the damage has been estimated at 20 million Russian rubles. Korea, dozens of people perished and many people remained without a shelter. 125,000 buildings damaged, out of them 29,000 destroyed. 1,930 bridges were damaged, and the damage was estimated at $600 million. Italy, Switzerland, the Alps. More than 100 people died. Several dozens are missing. Many people remained without a shelter. Taiwan, about 50 people died. 150 people are missing. Many agricultural lands were destroyed. The damage was estimated at $40 million. According to the statistic data, the river floods for the last 20 years killed about 200,000 people. As per the opinion of many hydrologists, this number has been decreased. Only for the last 19th century, at the Chinese rivers, the number of victims has reached the point of 1 million people. For the last 500 years, the number of people killed by the earthquakes reached the point of 4.5 million people. The World Earthquake Statistics states that during a period from 1947 through 1970, 151,000 people died. From 1970 through 1976, 700,000 people died. From 1979 through 1989, 1.5 million people perished. During the last 40 years, during last major 4 calamities in the territory of the former Soviet Union, there were about 150,000 people who died. Hundreds were injured. These are the cities like Ashgabat, Tashkent, Spitak, Sakhalin Island. At present, there are laws in Kazakhstan which are valid and which are associated with the civil defense and emergency cases of natural and man-made origin. These laws stipulate a number of measures for the prevention of floods, the rescue of victims of the floods, and liquidation of the consequences of these events is being executed. The moratorium for the construction activities at dangerous sites is being implemented. Necessary funds are being allocated for the erection and reinforcement of the protection dams and restoration of hydro-protection facilities. Any natural calamity can be predicted. It is possible to forecast the time, its nature, the expected date, the expected magnitude scale, and it is possible to undertake the prevention measures in order to reduce the damage and to create the favorable conditions for the conduct of rescue and urgent measures for the rescue and restoration activities. The population can be alerted in advance on the approach of a flood. The warning messages addressed to the population should contain the data on the weather forecast, the expected behavior patterns of the population, and the procedure for evacuation of the people. At all the weather forecast stations, a ceaseless monitoring over the atmospheric changes is being carried out, and the warning messages would get transmitted to the appropriate agencies. The methods and ways for forecasting and prediction of earthquakes are getting improved and modernized. The places of approximation of tectonic slabs are being researched and studied thoroughly. Despite an abundance of seismic researches and seismic methods, the start of an earthquake can be predicted only when the start of the tectonic slabs begins, and this process gets initiated right before an earthquake itself. A major contribution in the process of researching and prediction of the earthquakes was made by the Japanese seismologists. Experts of the Meteorological Center, with the aid of the most sophisticated and advanced seismic devices, can predict any tremor 40-50 seconds prior to its start, and if the epicenter is located at the distance of 200 kilometers from the observation point. But in any case, a lot will depend upon the people themselves. All the measures undertaken by the governments and public organizations will be useless if a person would not take care of himself. Only an integrated cooperative efforts can help the rescuer, and the rescuee, the one who is being saved, can lead to a positive outcome in any situation. From the start of the development of the human civilizations, there were about 150 million people who perished during the earthquakes. At the beginning of this era on Earth, about 200 million people died, which comprises 3/4 of the population of the Earth, and who became victims of these natural calamities. Earthquakes are underground tremors and jerks of the Earth's surface that occur as a result of displacement and shifts of the Earth's surface and the upper layer of the Earth mantle that are transmitted at large distances. The intensity of tremors gets measured in scores, seismic scale, and the energetic rating, the magnitude, will be used and measured according to Richter's scale. Reasons that cause the tremors mainly occur in the mountains and at the foothill of the mountains, or in the areas of transition from the island link to the ecological tray or up in the mountains. However, there can be earthquakes in the plain and flat areas as well. The magnitude and consequences of an earthquake may be determined by the rate of its intensity as per the 12th grade scale. For comparison, during a severe earthquake of 12th grade, a considerable change of relief might happen when objects start moving up in the air, and as a rule a total destruction of buildings and facilities get started. Every year on the Earth one can register about 150 destructive earthquakes, 7,000 vigorous ones, 19,000 moderate quakes, 150,000 weak quakes, and about several million very weak tremors. There are three types of reasons that cause quakes on the Earth: landslides, collapse, volcanic, and tectonic ones. Natural quakes, as a rule, may happen as a result of tectonic processes deep in the core of the Earth, during volcanic eruptions, violent collapses, landslides, karst futilities, meteorite downfalls, and collisions of the Earth with celestial bodies. Man-made quakes occur as a result of human activities. The most destructive and recurring ones are the tectonic quakes. It is known that the Earth's crust consists of solid blocks located at different angles from each other, and which are linked with each other by low-density layers. At the junction points, there appear powerful tensions that cause the movements of the blocks, and which ultimately generate the tremors. One-tenth of the Earth's surface of the continents is subject to quakes. Regrettably, the highest density of the population can be observed in the areas of higher seismic activity. The most active seismic zones pass through Japan, the major part of China, India, the Philippines, the central part of America, western coasts of Southern America and California. In the desert areas that include the Canadian pre-polar zone, the Antarctica, jungles of the Amazon, Australian desert, the quakes do not happen. This is a list of major quakes. 1755, Lisbon, Portugal. 1948, Ashgabat, Turkmenistan. 1954, Spain. 1960, Chile. 1988, Armenia. 1990, Iran. 1906, San Francisco. 1920, China. 1923, Tokyo, Japan. It was at the beginning of the 21st century when devastating and violent earthquakes happened in such countries like Pakistan, Turkey, and Indonesia. Certain parts of the Republic of Kazakhstan are considered as earthquake-prone zones. Especially these zones include the areas like the city of Almaty. The history of the city of Almaty and the town of Verny can allow to observe the consequences of this natural calamity. It is worth noting that within a short period of time, there were three major quakes in Almaty itself. Verny quake, June 9, 1887. The magnitude of the quake in the epicenter reached 9 to 10 points. Chilik quake, July 12, 1889. The magnitude of the epicenter was about 10 points. Kemenskaya region, January 4, 1911. The intensity of the quake reached the point of 9 to 10 scales in the epicenter. The latest quake happened in the territory of the Republic of Kazakhstan in Lugovoye region of the Jambul Oblast. As a result of that calamity, 3 people died and one 5-year-old child was injured. In actuality, it is quite possible to avoid any human losses. The psychological condition of a human being is of crucial importance. During an earthquake, it is important not to panic. If by any chance you are inside a building during an earthquake, try to hide yourself in a safe place. If any building, there always exists a danger of collapsing of large pieces of plaster, lighting fixtures, window glasses. Therefore, try to hide yourself under a table. School children should hide themselves under their desks. Broken window glasses are extremely dangerous because even during slight tremors, the windows are the first to get broken. But broken pieces of glass can cause additional injuries. In order not to get hurt, try to turn away from the windows and cover your face and head with your hands and clothes. If it has been decided to get evacuated, it is prohibited to create any stampede in the doorway because the stampede can cause additional injuries. Try to avoid stairs inside the buildings. The stairs are the first to get collapsed, even during slight tremors. If it has been decided to get evacuated through the windows, try to use the windows of the first floor. In the case if you are in an apartment during the first tremors of the earth, try to turn off all the electric and gas appliances in the apartment. In a multi-storied building, the first thing to do is to open widely the door and stand in the doorframe. Do not get frightened if the door will get stuck in between. This might happen due to the misalignment of the axis. Try to avoid elevators. After leaving the building, try to get to an open space, away from the premises and electricity transmission lines. The distance up to the closest building should be not less than 100 meters. Try to remain in an open space, away from any constructions, since collapsing fragments can pose a real danger. Children who are not attended by adults should stay in open spaces, so they could be easily found by rescuers and adults. Get prepared for the recurrent tremors and jerks. They may occur in several days, weeks, or even several months. One never can say for sure that there would be no recurrent tremors and the danger has gone. The most dangerous are the first several hours after the earthquake. Therefore, try not to avoid entering the building for at least 2-3 first hours without a solid reason for that. If by any chance you find yourself in the blockage, try to find out whether there are any other people who got blocked as well. For that purpose, try to shout, knock, and strain your ear. To be with someone, it would be easier to get out anyway. If you got squeezed, try to release your arm and leg. Always be careful because any careless motion can cause a collapse. If you got injured, try to bandage your wounds. Any cloth would do, even your own clothes. If it is chilly, try to curl up, acquiring a fetal position. This position would help you to preserve warmth. Any materials like cellophane, paper, tissue can be used as heat insulators. If it is possible, try to shout, give signals and knock. According to the opinion of the experts of the Meteorological Center of Japan, any notification given 10 seconds prior to any disaster can save many human lives.
In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, on that day all the springs of great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heaven were opened, and rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. The waters rose and increased on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to the depth of more than 20 feet. The Great Flood, the Bible, Genesis 6.6, 6.20.
During the entire history of the humankind, people have always been subject to the natural calamities. Legends and stories about these disasters reached us as well from the depth of the ancient histories. One of them is a flood. A flood is a major flooding of an area caused by the raise of the level of the water reservoirs. Very often the floods happen during the ice movements when pieces of ice get stuck